Hello guys, welcome to a new class of Spanish facing the 21st century. As you know, in the second half of the semester we're going to focus on the historical part that goes from 1982 up until nowadays. We're going to address other topics, but mostly we're going to be addressing different policy issues through the different governments that were in office in Spain. And in this first class, and in the one on Monday, we're going to talk about the Socialist Era. The first Socialist Era that goes from 1982 to 1996. And today we're going to address three different topics, and each of them is going to be in a different video. In this first video, we're going to talk about Felipe González, who was the president of the government at that time, and whose leadership was very important and took the Socialist Party to the victory in 1982. Then we're going to talk about PSOE hegemonic power and how they won 4 elections in a row, and that perpetuated them in power for over 14 years. And this is something unprecedented, and we're going to analyze it from a political science tool, what that means. And actually, the consequences are going to be seen on Monday in that class. And last but not least, we're going to talk about the home politics that they took in place. What different policy fields did they address, and how did they change the country? So let's focus on Felipe González and his leadership. When we talk about Felipe González, his name is always connected to this political party, this PSOE. Partido Socialista Obrero Español, People's Workers Socialist Spanish Party. So it's a party that actually, as you can see in this slide, is 140 years old, so it's not new. Actually, we talked about PSOE when we talked about the Republic a little bit and how they were in power during that time. But during Francoism, obviously they were not legal. This party was not legal and was clandestine. But it's a traditional party. And Felipe González was the leader that brought them to victory in 1982. Remember that there were elections in 1979. After the constitution was drafted, there were elections that were won by UCD, and UCD with Adolfo Suárez, remember the name of the airport in Madrid, was the person in charge of that government. But in 1982, we'll see that the result was different. But let's talk a little bit about type of legitimate ruler. And here we're going to go to Max Weber to give you a little bit of a theoretical background to analyze this issue. And Max Weber talked about 3 different kind of leaderships, 3 different kind of rulers. We had the charismatic, we had the traditional or authoritarian, and we had the legal. Obviously, nowadays leaders, these are ideal types. As I said, there are no perfect fit. There's no perfect fit. All of these are proxies. And obviously, Felipe González had a little bit of charismatic and legal leadership. On legal leadership, in the sense that he was a democratic leader that was befriended by the votes of the people, and on the other hand, he was charismatic because of his personality. Felipe González, everyone said that he could charm anyone while talking, and that played really well for him in political debates in 1993 and also 1993, 2 debates that he held, and that was for those elections. So, if we had to place Felipe González anywhere in this scale, we're going to say that initially he was charismatic. Obviously, over time, he gained more of that legal leadership that Max Weber talks about. How was PSOE during Francoism? Where was Felipe González coming from? As you know, during Francoism, political parties were not legal. PSOE was no exception. So, PSOE was resisting the regime as they could. Obviously, in a clandestine fashion, even in 1975, they had to have clandestine congresses in Madrid, or even before that in Suresnes. It had to be clandestine. It had to be in France because they were not able to hold it in Spain. So yeah, PSOE was actually not the one leading the opposition. They were part of the opposition, but the Communist Party at that time was more relevant. As I said in previous classes when talking about the Constitution, it was kind of a surprise that in 1977 elections, people opted for PSOE before Communist Party, and that could be understood as they opted for centrality, they opted for the less extreme options in this political spectrum. So we have to also talk about Suresnes. As I was saying, this Congress of the political party, think about the Congresses of the parties in the US, for example, when they are choosing candidates. This Congress was held in Suresnes, that is a village in France, in the south of France, and that's when Felipe González, that was 1975, that was when Felipe González was elected as the Secretary General, as the leader of the Socialist Party. He was a rather young lawyer from Sevilla, actually, so that's quite interesting, because it always said that he benefited southern Spain during his mandate, during his 14 years in office. For example, Sevilla was the first city that was connected with Madrid with high-speed train in 1992. But that will be another story for later. And also it's interesting to talk about the Extraordinary Congress in 1979, because that was the vision of Felipe González, I think we mentioned this in class already, when he asked members of the party to leave Marxism and embrace social democracy. And in the first vote, actually, the members of the party voted against this, and they decided to remain ideologically a Marxist party. However, Felipe González threatened to leave the party if people were not voting to change to social democracy. There was an extraordinary congress later that year, in 1979, and actually people then voted for social democracy to keep Felipe González on board, to keep Felipe González as leader of the party. And what did this result on? Actually, in 1982, there were elections. You know, the government of Suárez was weak, so they called snap election. Remember the attempt of coup that took place in 1981? They were already debating there whether, the government was weak, was a vote of confidence. They were actually electing a new leader because Adolfo Suárez was stepping down. It was another member of the party. But what is important is in 1982, if you can see the slide properly here, that's a landslide win for the socialists in these elections. They win over 10 million votes. The second in those elections was Coalición Popular, a right-wing party, a broad right-wing party, and they won over 5 million votes. It's almost double the second, and obviously this gave them an absolute majority in parliament, and this allowed for a very strong government from 1982, a very strong socialist government with no one contesting them in parliament. Remember that actually, because of how the relation between government and parliament works, and party discipline works, a strong absolute majority in parliament means an almost absolute power to the government at that time. And this video is actually Felipe González, after the clip of the news when he won the elections. Here what they say actually is quite interesting. At some point, when people are shouting, they're not shouting for the party, they're not shouting for the change, they're shouting for Felipe González. And that speaks quite clearly of his leadership within the party and how people at some point even identify the political party with Felipe González leadership. After the video, we're going to have a small break and then we'll continue with the hegemony of PSOE.
Está claro que el Partido Socialista Obrero Español ha obtenido el respaldo mayoritario del pueblo español.
This is what I meant. I don't know if you can hear it. If not, while you're playing your own PowerPoint, you will be able to hear it. Look how Spain looked in 1982.
Más que un partido concreto, es la democracia y el pueblo español. Don Felipe González Márquez queda investido de la confianza del Congreso de los Diputados para formar gobierno.
Tengo por mi conciencia y honor cumplir fielmente las obligaciones del cargo de presidente del gobierno.
All men of government. Okay, I'll see you after the break and we'll continue.